Forgotten and covered in concrete, the dog was found with no hope. Buried alive beneath a construction site on the outskirts of town, his body was sealed in silence. No air, no light, no way out. For days, the world above carried on, unaware that just inches below their feet, something was still breathing. He shouldn't have survived. And yet, when the workers finally struck through the hardened slab, they didn't expect to see a pair of eyes staring back, wide, unblinking, and still alive. It was 7:46 a.m. when the first hammer hit the old foundation. The construction crew had been assigned to clear out the remnants of an abandoned lot that had sat untouched for over 2 years. Half-finished walls, twisted rebars, and a thick slab of concrete covered the ground like a tombstone for a project that had long since been forgotten. No one knew what had happened here. The permit had been revoked halfway through. Since then, it had just sat, fenced off, quiet, dead. Until now. The workers were halfway through cutting the slab when one of them paused. He swore he heard something. Not a crack, not a vibration, a sound, faint, muffled, like scratching. The others laughed it off. The ground doesn't scratch back, they said. But curiosity made him kneel. He pressed his ear to the concrete, and there it was again. A shiver crawled down his spine. He stood up, waved for the machine to stop, and signaled for help. The concrete saw roared to life again, carving slowly through the slab. Dust clouded the air. When they pried open the first panel, the space beneath looked like a shallow drainage pit, partially sealed off, but something was moving in the dark. At first, no one breathed. Then, a single paw, trembling and slick with grime, reached into the light. There, in a space no bigger than a suitcase, was a dog, bones visible beneath thinning skin, eyes sunken, but alive. He didn't growl, he didn't bark, he just blinked, slowly, cautiously, as if unsure if he was still dreaming. The crew backed away in disbelief. Emergency responders were called. A fire rescue team arrived within minutes, lowering oxygen into the hole before gently lifting the dog out. His body was limp, every rib showed, but his tail, barely, began to move. They rushed him to a nearby veterinary hospital. The vet on duty, Dr. Simone Harris, had seen her share of rescues, but nothing like this. The dog's temperature was dangerously low. He was severely dehydrated, suffering from shock, starvation, and early signs of organ failure. No microchip, no collar, no name. He had simply been entombed. As they worked to stabilize him, one nurse whispered, "How did he even get under there?" That question would haunt everyone involved. Days passed. The dog, now named Chance by the clinic staff, fought for his life. He couldn't walk at first. He couldn't even lift his head. But each day he held on, and slowly, impossibly, he improved. Meanwhile, investigators turned their attention to the site. City records showed the building was abandoned mid-construction nearly 2 years earlier. No reason listed, no final inspection, just a sudden stop. Surveillance from that period had long since been erased or lost. But someone had sealed that pit. The concrete had been poured after the building was abandoned. An act of cruelty. Deliberate. Calculated. A month later, a break came unexpectedly. A former security guard, after seeing news coverage of the rescue, came forward. He'd worked at the site briefly, back when it was still active. One night, during a routine patrol, he'd heard barking, frantic and constant, coming from one of the unfinished units. When he investigated, he found a man, agitated and panicked, dragging a thin brown dog behind him. When the guard approached, he waved him off, muttering something about getting rid of the mutt and nobody coming back here anyway. The guard reported it to his supervisor, but nothing came of it. Weeks later, the site shut down. He never saw the man or the dog again. The man he described matched a former site manager who had a history of animal abuse charges in another state, but by then, he was gone, moved, vanished. And yet the dog he left to die had survived. Word of Chance's story spread across the country. Photos of him in recovery, thin but alert, eyes bright with fight, captured hearts. Donations poured in, adoption requests flooded the clinic, but the staff wasn't ready to let go just yet. They knew this was more than just survival. This was a return from a place no living thing was meant to come back from. 2 months after he was pulled from the concrete, Chance took his first steps outside. It was early morning. The sun was just rising. He stood, shaky but determined, and walked across the grass for the first time in what might have been years. No one knows exactly how long he was under. No one knows how he clung to life in complete darkness, with no food, no water, no air. But he did. He was buried. He was forgotten. And he was never meant to be found. But someone did find him. And when they broke through the slab and looked down into that dark, narrow space, what stared back wasn't just a dog. It was hope, unyielding, quiet, still breathing. Because even when the world covers you in silence, even when the concrete hardens above your head, sometimes, against every odd, life doesn't give up, and neither did he.